That's me.
Hey everybody, it's Friday night, and you know what that means. It's time for On the Ring Apron. I'm Steve.
I'm Kia.
And we're starting to get close. You can feel it. Double pay-per-view weekend coming up next weekend. We've got SummerSlam, of course, coming up on the 23rd. NXT Takeover 30 directly before it. All the storylines now starting to finally reach their culminating point. You can feel the excitement. It has a very WrestleMania-esque feel. It's supposed to be your second biggest pay-per-view of the year. We criticized the storyline writing a couple of weeks ago. They've picked it up, that it kind of went backwards a little bit. But this week it really did a good job of ramping things back up again. Looking forward to, what we've got in store for next week.
You want to know how I tell you? You want to know how I know the writing has been really good this week? I've gotten in my feelings again. Like, some of the storylines had me, like, emotional, like, up, down, angry, sad, upset, mad, like, laughing, humorous. Just, that's how you know the writing's good, when I go through all the emotions across the board.
Tonight was one of those nights. We just got done watching Smackdown before we went live, and this was one that, on a number of occasions, had me personally in my feelings. I was mad at one point, I was sad at one point, definitely a bit of surprise and shock at the end.
Yes.
And a little bit of fun and excitement in the middle there as well. I think you hit the nail on the head. The emotion is what brings it into it. But of course, one of the biggest news that you can make, and it has nothing to do with any of the three shows, but the biggest news coming out from the WWE is that for the first time since our show debuted all the way back in March.
Yeah.
Next week, we will have the opportunity to talk about a show that did not take place at either the Performance Center or at Full Sail as SmackDown and Raw. The announcement made official earlier today. Next week, starting with SmackDown, and then the following Raw, and of course SummerSlam is now going to take place from the Amway Center, still in Orlando, but now getting the bigger arena feel. There's supposed to be some type of way where the fans are going to have an opportunity to be able to interact. I think it'll be something similar to what we've seen with the NBA and with MLS, where the fans are going to be able to be on their TVs in front of their cameras to still give the idea that fans are still there. Maybe with the whole bubble concept the sports have used, maybe a way for fans to be able to start slowly being able to return back to live events.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I honestly want to see where it goes and how they take it and how everything goes. So for me, you know me, I'm very weird about my safety. I will stay safe at all costs. And so to see this,
how many times have you heard the mass sanitizer spill at the end of each of our shows? If you've enjoyed it, you know the speech.
And stay 6 feet apart. I'll tell you about that later. But not you. I'm just talking about in general. But I'm just excited. I just, again, like March was the first time that we had to be at the Performance Center. So,
well, the idea, of course, being that every single show we've done since we premiered on the Ring Apron, going back almost 6 months now.
Wow.
Every show, including pay-per-views, have been at the Performance Center, and NXT has been at Full Sail, with the exception of one night where they needed to borrow the Performance Center. So, the idea that we're going to get a chance, to have a different venue, a different feel, WWE is going to be able to use that larger arena feel, be able to bring pyro back into it, if they want to. Of course, still no fans allowed for the time being, but the fact is, it's starting to feel like things, it may be very slow, but we're kind of moving towards what we feel is normal. But I still think they're going to try to do so safely.
Now let me ask you a question. Do you think that it will bring down some of the craziness that's been happening as of late?
Well, there's a lot of crazy to go around, so I think you might have to be a little more specific.
This whole Retribution group, the lights going out, the stuff going crazy.
Well, the idea that they're not just invading Raw and SmackDown, just one or the other, they're taking the time to hit both. And that's kind of where our big point is tonight is, this Retribution group, they weren't just a one-time deal. They didn't just appear, from the Raw Underground, that they showed up, and they've now made appearances once again on Raw and wreaked havoc again tonight on SmackDown. And making themselves very well known. This has, to me, and this is going back, I cannot believe I'm about to say this, goes back 10 years. But it has a very Nexus feel to it.
Yes, it does.
And again, look it up. 2010 was Nexus. It's been 10 years since that group made its debut, and we remember what a big deal they were. They ended up being the leaders of what ended up being creating other groups. The Shield was directly a product of what Nexus was able to do. So now you all of a sudden have another group, we believe mostly compromised of NXT, folks. So it'll be interesting to see, exactly what they're planning to do with this Retribution group. They've proven that they can cause havoc, but eventually at some point they're going to have to step in the ring, and eventually at some point WWE and the superstars are going to get smart enough that they're going to be able to finally get Retribution, on Retribution.
So my question to the audience that's watching us is, I want to hear your theories, your, suggestions, who you think it is, why do you think they're doing this, and who do you think is the ringleader behind this group? So for anybody that's watching, I want to hear your feedback.
We have nothing more to go on than anything As I said, we do our best to not do dirt sheet stuff on here. We don't do the behind the scenes stuff. So unless it's made official by WWE, it's all fair game. So that's a great question. I mean, who do you think are the members of the Retribution group? Who's the leader behind it? What is their motive? What are some things about it? We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Retribution? But we're going to have plenty of opportunity to be able to speak on them, especially leading into SummerSlam, because, again, new arena, big event, biggest place to be able to truly make their mark, on things. But let's start with Monday Night Raw, because of the fact that, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We're going to kind of hit the bullet point notes here, and really hit the big matches that have been set up for SummerSlam and for TakeOver when we get to NXT. You got to start, of course, with Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Orton doing what he, is set to do. Again, we've said it multiple times on this show. This is probably the best Orton that we've seen in maybe his entire career, and just adds another name to his long list of legends he's put away.
I mean, I'm not a really big fan of Ric Flair, but for what he did, that is downright despicable. But we know that's just who Randy Orton is, so we shouldn't really be surprised. But then the fact, the lights went out and everything happened, and it's just like, and then Drew comes out and he makes his point known that you've done this, I'm going to stop you.
I've got receipts to cash in.
Yeah, I got receipts to cash in. I'm going to get you. You're not going to keep doing this.
Right. Well, Orton has made it a point, and and he was very, very vocal in his reasoning to Rick about, the only reason I'm having to fight Kevin Owens tonight is because your ego couldn't stay out of the way. You couldn't stay out of the spotlight. I'm willing to go defend you. I'm willing to go fight for you. But at the end of the day, all I give a damn right now in my career is winning the WWE Championship. And you're standing in my way of that. And I don't care if we're friends. I don't care if we're buddies. I am removing you from the picture.
The equation,
and he did it the way he knows best. He punts him in the head. I do like, and calling a spade, using the Retribution lights to make sure you turn him out, because let's not kick a guy who, he even made it in there. 2 years ago, he was fighting for his life, in a hospital bed. And I remember actively being at work, looking on social media like he's going to go. And I'm going to be sad when that happens. But, making it seem, giving off the appearance that he was punted in the head and adding another legend to it. And it just hopefully puts more fuel on the fire. As good of a job as they've done with Braun, Fiend, and Alexa for their storyline, I can't, in my mind, picture any way that this is not your main event of SummerSlam.
We'll have to wait and see. Either way, it's just I feel like it's going to be a stacked card for SummerSlam, but let's get back to Raw.
We move to the Women's Championship, where we had a match on Raw where Asuka would take on Bayley, the SmackDown Women's Champion, with an opportunity to be able to earn a match against Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. And as expected, Asuka finds a way to get it done, despite some outside interference from Sasha and some underhanded tactics attempted by Bayley. Ultimately, Asuka gets Bayley to tap out, so Asuka gets her title shot for the Raw Women's title at SummerSlam.
I'm excited.
May not be done talking about her yet, a little spoiler, but we'll get to that in a bit. But let's talk about Asuka and Sasha first.
You know I'm a big Asuka fan, and nothing, there's not a slight on Sasha. I do love her too. But the way that, again, Asuka lost her title, in my opinion, I feel like, to me, she has nothing to lose and everything to gain from this match.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, Kairi Sane injured on, to basically make Sasha champion, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Asuka's got nothing to lose at this point. She has no friends, she has no title, and may ultimately get the opportunity to pay it back with some interest, at SummerSlam as she gets her match with Sasha. More on that here in a little bit. We did have a title change on Raw for the 38th time. God, I cannot believe that. R-Truth getting his baby back again as he pins Akira Tozawa after one of his run-ins with his Ninja Foot Clan. And after Akira ends up walking out of a match, R-Truth doing a very good job, disguised as one of his ninja men, and getting the drop on Akira. So now a 38-time 24/7 champion.
He is just so entertaining and so creative, and there's nothing you can't really say. I love it. Now, for everybody that knows, we have a younger son who is holding the same title as Truth, but he doesn't want
and
to
for
lose
a younger
it.
son, we're talking, we have the younger, and then we have the really younger.
The baby.
It's the really younger we're talking about here.
Let's put it like this. He is doing everything in his power to hold on to that title.
I'll tell you one thing. Ever since he won that, and if you go back and look way back in January, he actually, at the behest of some fans that were there, ended up pinning me to win the 24/7 championship of our household. And he's yet to relinquish that title since, mostly because no one will count a pinfall on a baby. So anybody over there willing to get on a Skype chat, and be willing to, count a pinfall against a baby, you let me know.
No.
But no one in my house will do it, so I got a feeling that title may not be changing hands anytime soon. But I'll tell you one thing, it doesn't matter whether anyone's coming for it or not. He will headbutt you, and he will bite you for that title.
Yeah, he will.
Continuing the storyline for the Raw Tag Team titles. Of course, Montez Ford continuing to play off the set that he's currently been poisoned. But it allowed for an opening with Bianca Belair now bringing herself into the scene, getting her match with Zelina, and doing what the EST does best, and that is be the BEST of WWE.
For everybody that knows, I'm going to go ahead and put you up on some game. If you take your earrings off and you start to take your earrings off, that means you about to get your whooped.
And I don't know if, and I went back and watched that scene when Zelina was trying to defend her point.
Yeah.
If you watched, as soon as Bianca took off the one earring, Charlie got the hell out of Dodge. Because she knew when that other earring got off, she just flipped it to the side and then it was on. Because she knew the moment she started taking off her earring, she knew where it was heading next, and Charlie, smart enough to get the hell out of there.
So not only is Charlie pretty, she's very smart, and knowing when the earrings come off, she gonna get her whipped.
And she got her butt whipped again on Raw as well. You also had Angelo Dawkins being able to get a win this week over Andrade as well. So right now the Street Profits with Bianca in their corner, have kind of gotten the upper hand and making it very clear Montez will be cleared and ready for SummerSlam 9 days from now.
Didn't I not mention I think this would be a good storyline, and obviously the writers must have been listening, because I felt like Bianca should have been in that corner, and Zelina's always in like Andrade and Garza's corner. So to me, good storyline writing.
Well, it seemed fitting, especially when she talked, Bianca making it a point, saying, we've kept our business separate, but my husband's business is my business. When something happens to him, it becomes my business. And she's, doing what any good wife does, and that's going and defending her man.
Trust me, I know.
And then finally, some clarity on the United States Championship. Apollo finally putting an end to who is the rightful U.S. champ last week. Plate exchange coming up. That cough keeps kicking in. But you had, Apollo go ahead, now sporting the new United States Championship. So I think the old one's finally been laid to rest. But MVP being able to goad him into getting a rematch. So at SummerSlam, it'll be MVP and Apollo again for the United States title.
I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. My pick right here, right now, before we even get to top rope spoilers, I'm not going against Apollo Crews. I don't like MVP. I'm pulling for Apollo Crews. Not only is a Georgia boy, but hey, he to me is always a fighting champion. So.
Well, he's waited a long time
for,
going through the years of NXT. We thought it was just destined he'd be NXT champion. This is, of course, before the North American title and any subsequent titles were created. We thought it was just destined that he would be NXT champion and quick. Yeah. And yet, that's not how it turned out. And then he's been put in some minor storylines, mainly low card, and losing most of the way. So for him to finally get a big story, to be able to not just be in the U.S. title picture, but to win it and to be a very popular champion, I don't know if that's necessarily product of the times we're in right now, or if it's something that's going to carry over once fans get back into arenas, but he's one of the more popular folks you're seeing every week.
Exactly.
So you've got all these matches coming in, of course, the official contract and contract signing, as well as match contract signing for Dominic Mysterio. And what a big play that your first match in a WWE ring is going to be at SummerSlam. And not just SummerSlam, but against a 5-time world champion in Seth Rollins.
But again, what did we say? We said it off camera. What better person to go up against? You know Seth will do everything. And just because he's the Messiah and he's playing a heel role, Seth is one of the people that if I had to get in the ring, I'd feel comfortable getting in the ring knowing that he's going to protect me throughout the whole entire match. So
right.
that's a big thing right there.
And doing a great job also of making Seth look like the much stronger, much more prepared person. Dominic Mysterio being on the wrong end of a Singapore cane attack by both Seth and Murphy.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of pictures on Twitter, Instagram of the welts, the scars, the cuts, everything that he took. I've only been hit in my life once by one of those things, and one hit was enough. But he was out there a good 5-6 minutes.
And
just getting tore up.
The fact they got him in the ropes to be able to do that. Until I went back and saw the match, I didn't even see Buddy Murphy outside of the ring behind him. All I saw was Seth was swinging, and then you kind of see a person behind him, and then that's when you see another stick hit him directly in the back several times. It's just, that was crazy, and the fact that we've seen some matches like that, ECW.
Very ECW feel, and of course, making it official also that this match will be. Right now, the expectation is that it will be no holds barred. They haven't officially announced what they're calling it yet, but he said, bring the stick, bring whatever weapons you want to bring. So the expectation is that it's no holds barred, which honestly, it gives you at least the mindset that Dominic has a chance in this match. But Seth's obviously going to go in a heavy favorite.
Let's just hope all that training he's been doing is going to pay off.
So, Raw absolutely stacking the card for SummerSlam. Other potential matches still waiting in the wings. Let's move to NXT, where NXT once again sets the bar. Maybe not so much from an emotional standpoint, but for just an overall talent level. You start off with Keith Lee literally getting caught in the fire, maybe literally more than anything else, as the contract officially signed for their NXT Championship match between himself and Karrion Kross. Scarlett Bordeaux putting her kiss of death on the contract. Keith Lee opens up the contract and ends up having a fireball shoot in his eye.
But what I like about that whole thing? Both men were serious. Scarlett didn't have to say a word. All she did, she looked at the paperwork, and I was so fascinated by how he was just able to look at Keith Lee and just sign his signature. That is one bad mister if you could do that.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see because they've done such a great job dating all the way back to Survivor Series last November of building Keith Lee up as this, just humongous, strong person. No one's going to stop him. And it's a little unprecedented for a person to get an NXT Championship match so soon since making his debut, but not necessarily unprecedented for him to win it. Let's recall, it only took a month for Kevin Owens to be crowned NXT champion from his debut. He only needed 2 matches and was ultimately NXT champion, and one of the better ones they had.
Exactly.
Finn didn't have that many matches before he got a shot at it. And so, it's not unprecedented for someone to get a shot, and they've built up Karrion to be this, really strong person, but at the same time, they've also done the same thing with Lee, and they've made it seem like the deck is stacked against Lee. So it'll be curious to see which direction they go with this.
So what do you think caused the fire? I think it was the kiss of death that she put on that.
Of course it was. She's proven she's definitely more than just, a beautiful looker out there. She definitely has some magic behind her. And that could be all the difference in a match like this because it's going to take a lot for Keith Lee to get rid of that title. But Karrion also has shown that there's not really much that people have been able to do to really stop him. Most of the match he had with Danny Burch this week, very little damage, very little effect. Even, he's taking German suplexes, and Karrion was up before Danny was.
But my thing with that is, if you're going to have Scarlett in Karrion's corner, I think you honestly need to have Mia. If there's no match that she's in that night, I honestly think she needs to be in her man's corner for this one. Not interfering in the match, but knowing that if something goes sideways, she's there.
I did like how they made very much a mention, because when Mia Yim had her match this week with Indy Hartwell, she, it was made mention I just got back to the arena just in time for my match, and everything else. So they're making sure that it's being clear that Mia and Keith are dating. And it'll be curious to see, on NXT leading into it, could Scarlett potentially play into that? And could they potentially target Mia very similar to what they're doing with Alexa on SmackDown? So, we'll see how that plays out. We have our next competitor for the North American Championship. and it ends up being your boy Cameron Grimes. You know how much you love that man. She argues about him every damn day.
He is so nasty and grimy and gritty and looks sticky.
And yet,
and he's
one win away now from being North American champion, Cameron Grimes. To the moon!
No.
If I say this anymore, I'm destined to the couch. You know how it works here.
No, like anybody but Cameron Grimes, please.
But Cameron Grimes ends up, winning the match that ultimately involved Kushida and the returning Velveteen Dream. A very nice surprise, considering everything that he's had to go through in his, he's basically been away since he lost his last match to Adam Cole.
Adam Cole, yeah.
Unfortunately not able to get the job done, but by him not being the person who got pinned or submitted, because Cameron ends up hitting his finisher on Kushida to end up getting the win. It ends up allowing Velveteen Dream to get his second chance, and it will allow for a match we should have saw a month ago when he faces Finn Balor this upcoming Wednesday.
Ooh.
So you get Dream and Finn. Winner advances, loser doesn't go at all.
Pulling for Finn.
And then another match you're also going to see will be Ridge Holland and Johnny Gargano. Curious to see where this one's going to end up going, because Johnny, the self-proclaimed face of NXT, and I think most people would argue face or heel. I don't think it really matters. Johnny is who you think about when you think of NXT.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Ridge Holland undefeated since joining WWE, in singles competition.
My thing,
and obviously a size and strength advantage over Johnny as well.
My thing with that is, I believe if I have it correct and I'm remembering it correctly, Ridge Holland is the rugby player, right?
Correct.
Rugby, in my opinion, is like one of the strongest sports. I don't know much about it, but I know in order to play
football without the pads.
I know you have to be very strong. So for the fact, not only is he a big guy, I feel like mentally, physically, he is stronger. But at the same time, Johnny Gargano, doesn't matter if he's face or heel, he has a bunch of heart. So that's going to be an interesting match.
But
to
no
see.
soul.
No soul. He has a lot of heart, but no soul. But I think
you would have
interesting.
And you would have to think that if Johnny can find a way to advance, a ladder match definitely would favor someone like him.
Oh yeah.
Considering you think of some of the other people that are in there, you've got a Damian Priest. You've got a, the Archer. You got Thick Boy, who is in there as well. And now you add Cameron Grimes, who up to this point really has been either a right place, right time, or a wrong place, wrong time, because he's been on the right end of a win over Finn Balor, but also on the wrong end of a loss to Finn Balor, as well as opening his mouth to Keith Lee 2 weeks ago. That was definitely wrong place, wrong time.
Most definitely.
So either way, 3 competitors, 2 more to be decided this week. This will be our last show before it. Who you got? Who's advancing?
I would like to see Finn get in, and I would like to see him advance. I mean.
So you got Finn over Dream. What about Ridge and?
See, I don't know.
Ridge and Johnny.
I'm a big Johnny fan, so like Ridge is gonna have to prove a lot more because Johnny's been here. Johnny's been through the ringer. Johnny has gone through everything, heel or face, with or without Candice, with or without Ciampa. So honestly, to end that one, I'm gonna have to pick Johnny just for the fact that he's got.
Honestly, I like those 2 picks as well. I think this is going to be one of your bigger takeovers of the year. I think you need to have, at the minimum, you got to have at least one.
Oh, yeah.
I just can't picture Johnny not being in it, and I also can't picture Finn either.
Exactly.
I like both Finn and Johnny also advancing as well. And then, the stamp with a couple of good backstage segments with some good video packages for Dakota Kai and for Io Shirai. Setting up their women's championship match. They're making Dakota look fierce and making it clear, I don't need friends, I don't need enemies, I don't even need associates.
No,
I care about one thing, and that's the NXT Women's title.
But what has Triple H always stated? If you're not here to win a title, why are you here? And Captain Coda's defense, I feel like, as much as I love Io, I could potentially see a switch in titles, even if she's holding it for just a little bit.
And that's one that really is, in my mind, a very good toss-up because they've spent a lot of time, everyone, of course, knows, like, the story of Tegan Nox and her return back from her knee injuries. Everyone, kind of remembers or doesn't really remember Dakota went through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Dakota, and for a little while, they did it simultaneously.
Yeah, they did.
So their storyline, has really been building since War Games back in November, with Dakota really building herself up as the heel. Had a little bit of time with the Raquel Gonzalez side, but at this point, I do feel like she is more than capable of being able to win a championship. I do think if you got to put odds and money, I think Io's still a slight favorite, but it's going to be a tough one to call.
But she's looking good. She looks strong. She looks fierce. Her outfit, her hair, everything about Captain Coda, in my opinion, it just says, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm going to win, I'll do whatever it takes, and I'm going to look good doing it. So...
And then, of course, this week also we get the official, acceptance of a match between Adam Cole and Pat McAfee.
Don't get me started on that.
The NFL punter going to make his official WWE debut, and you're going to take on the longest reigning NXT champion. Cole obviously is going to go in an extremely heavy favorite. But the fact is, the match happens, and, when it comes to takeovers, you really can't predict anything.
So, let's go back, and you remember the whole Bianca, when Charlotte tried to put her in her place, that whole movement, that whole dance?
Yes.
That, to me...
There are things we could say if we've said them on the show. We wouldn't be able to do another one, but maybe another time.
That, to me, it started with the interview where Adam Cole went and did the interview, and I felt like right out of the gate, I don't even think at the time that McAfee was like trying to be rude, trying to be mean, but then Adam Cole took it that way, and then he forgave him. Even personal invite, come sit ringside at the table with the commentators and watch the match. And at that present moment, whoever was on that commentating table with McAfee literally moved away, because what he was saying was, he was pretty much trashing Adam Cole. Now, do me one thing and don't trash Adam Cole, because Adam Cole has been here. He's been across all 3 brands. He's held several titles. He's held on to titles. He pretty much, that man can take anything that is thrown in his direction. So the fact that you decided you were going to talk crap in his house, technically, and then not only that, you punt him and you drop him, I have a problem with that. That to me, no, don't come in here running your mouth, bumping your gums, thinking that it's okay. And then the fact that you had Triple H and Shawn Michaels telling him, get the hell out of here, after the blatant disrespect that he showed to not just Adam Cole, but the whole NXT roster, technically.
We'll definitely see. There's going to be a ton of emotion in that match as well. Before we move to SmackDown, we do have to have a more personalized shout-out as well, and that's to one of our resident NXT sweethearts, and that's Shotzi Blackheart.
Yes.
You had a rough week,
God.
but for those of you who are not aware, her car as well as her ring gear and helmet ended up being stolen for a little while. She ultimately did get everything back, but kind of let us be on the journey the entire way. And for a long time, we weren't sure if it was storyline. Maybe Robert Brand, Robert Stone had something to do with it. But ultimately, it was no storyline. But able to be found. The front of her car a little bit dented. But a shout out to Shotzi. Glad you got that back.
Your stuff, because we saw her this past week come in to NXT just in plain street clothes with no helmet, and we're not really used to seeing her like that. So the fact that she put everything in the back of her mind and still came out and did what she had to do.
Exactly. So, and it looks like she's going to enter into this Robert Stone storyline with Rhea Ripley. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But we're moving a little slower than we need to, so we got to move into SmackDown here because it's a little long week, and we're going to know some of y'all are getting ready to go to bed here. When it comes to SmackDown, we said it ourselves, definitely had us in our emotions this week. Of course, you start off initially with Retribution showing themselves again, interrupting the Big E and John Morrison at the beginning.
Yep.
More on that as we move a little closer. Ultimately, that match didn't get very far. But it starts off with, of course, the Triple Brand Battle Royal. This is where it had me just plumb upset because they have done so many good things with the women's division in WWE.
Yes,
I am sorry. I will look right in the camera. I will Dexter Loomis this damn camera. I'm going to tell you flat out, they got this one wrong. Okay?
Asuka.
Literally, because for those of you who didn't, again, was trying not to spoil it, Asuka ends up entering the Battle Royal and wins. So now not only does Asuka face Sasha for the Raw Women's Championship, but will also, in a separate match, face Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship later that same night. So she possibly could walk out with both titles.
But if you remember when Bayley and Sasha went backstage and they were talking, she was not even supposed to be in this match. She was an unofficial person that came in, entered herself into the match. She wasn't supposed to be here tonight at all.
Right, and at this point, just this from a personal standpoint, I don't know. They did all the the storylines where, you expected a SmackDown person to win it. Maybe you get a surprise NXT person. Maybe you get the surprise NXT call-up.
Yeah.
Maybe you get like a Rhea Ripley or somebody to show up and get a one-off match. The fact is, though, you ran storylines, good storylines with people like Lacey Evans and Naomi.
Yeah.
You have the good comeback story of Tegan Knox. Maybe this is where you get her call-up. Shayna Baszler, having a great run now as a face, would have been the perfect opponent. And instead, you have a roster between all three brands of nearly 40 women, but yet the title shot goes to someone who already had a match, and a title match nonetheless at SummerSlam. So now basically your entire SummerSlam title matches basically revolve around three women.
Bayley, Sasha,
and everybody else sits in the back.
My thing with that is, and
got it wrong.
I told you, I was like, I mean, and everybody knows I love Asuka, I really do. I will not say anything bad about her, but in my opinion, I could have seen Naomi, I could have seen Lacey, we saw Dana Brooke, we saw Shayna, and Shayna, for her to be a face at this present moment, I could see her, we saw Bianca, again, Shotzi, Tegan.
Love the blue on Bianca, by the way. The lipstick, everything. She just settles it so well.
My thing is, when you already had a title match with Sasha to get back your Raw Women's title, which to me, I feel like in my mind it still belongs to her, but then now you enter in unofficially, and you now are able to go for Bayley, I feel like you could have done another SmackDown person.
Well, now it ends up playing out that there's only one of two routes this can go. Either Asuka's walking out with both, or she's walking out with neither. I can't see a scenario where she wins one but doesn't win the other. And of course, one person made mention in our comments that the possibility of them making it just a triple threat 2 pinfall match, where you have the first pin be for the Raw title, second pin for the SmackDown, which, opens the door for either Asuka to still win both, or potentially Bayley and Sasha to now start, having the cracks and the chinks in the armor, especially with them now announcing they'll have to defend the women's tag titles at Payback the week after SummerSlam. Maybe also potentially a title flip. Maybe Sasha pins Bayley to win the SmackDown, and then Bayley takes the Raw Women's title, and then you have a title flip, There's some possibilities there. I just feel like there were better options.
My thing with that is, and if she holds both titles, I'm nothing. It's not a slight against Asuka. Nobody does it better than Becky. Becky 2 belts. You can't run the same storyline with a different person. You just can't. Especially when you've got the golden standard looking so strong and whatnot.
You end up watching the rest of SmackDown though. You had Sheamus ended up having a good match with Shorty G. Said, hey, Retribution won't come out during my match, and sure enough they didn't. And then you end up getting into a story with AJ Styles trying to use statistics. I love my stats.
Yep.
But kind of making a joke of it. But ultimately, it leads to him defending the Intercontinental title for some reason on SmackDown next week instead of at SummerSlam. But he'll defend against Jeff Hardy.
It makes no sense for that to be on SmackDown when it needs to be on SummerSlam, in my opinion.
The only way I could see it is if the match ends up ending with an unclean finish of some kind, or maybe Retribution, gets involved in some way where then they have the match again at SummerSlam, because that match could easily be one that could steal the show. Also, as we mentioned earlier, first event that will be at Amway since everything happens. Maybe that's your main event. Maybe that's your lead up into it. Having AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy, AJ and Daniel Bryan a couple of months ago having a classic match on SmackDown.
Yeah,
so maybe we see something like that yet again, because they've proven it can work if done properly.
But now, see, the match the thing that excited me tonight about SmackDown. You understand, I'm all for women's empowerment. I loved Mandy and Sonya when they were Fire and Desire, and to see the storyline. That one,
the final implosion.
That one has me in my feelings. We saw, Sonya cut her hair, and we're hearing Mandy. I'm used to the comments of being the pretty one or the pretty face or whatever. I've worked my butt off, Sonya. You should know that. And the fact is now hair versus hair. By the way, Mandy's pulling that hair off beautifully. She still looks gorgeous.
Well, it's gonna be interesting to see whether she's gonna get to keep that for more than 2 weeks or not, because that match is now official for SummerSlam. Hair versus hair, Sonya and Mandy. Someone's getting shaved bald that week. Of course, we've made mention on this already. I think Sonya can afford to go bald and be okay with it. I'm not sure Mandy can. So we'll see how that goes. It eventually leads into the SmackDown main event, which was Big E and John Morrison again. Johnny Drip Drip.
Hey,
ultimately getting interrupted again by Retribution attacking people in the back. the SmackDown locker room came out, men and women, to try to defend things, but ultimately they just, Retribution once again one step ahead of the roster. Big E ends up getting the win, but quickly gets out of the way as Braun Strowman makes his return back, clean shaven head, trying to portray off the monster. And this is where you really got your emotional side set up, as he, instead of when he called out the Fiend, instead he was met by Alexa Bliss.
And she's got a mean back slap, strong slap, spin on
Well,
that
ultimately
hand.
she came out wanting answers.
Yeah,
She wanted, Braun said last week that he didn't care about Alexa. All he cares about is destroying the Fiend. All he cares about is stopping the Fiend from, changing over anyone else, because we've made mention on the show, and Braun now using it in storyline, that, people who come in contact with the Fiend revert back to their ways when they were most successful. And everybody knows Alexa's most dominant time was when she was no holds barred, no takers, or, no survivors, no prisoners. I will do whatever I've got to do to be the best, and I will run over anyone I need to.
I feel like we kind of saw that tonight when Nikki tried to apologize, got excited about seeing her. I feel like we're starting to slowly, with her in the storyline, see her kind of revert back to that person, even though she's wanting answers. That's what I got out of it.
Well, ultimately, the only answer she got was getting dropped from about 7.5, 8 feet above her head before eventually she got tossed and was left in the middle of the ring when the Fiend was getting ready to step out. Instead, it was Braun who disappeared, giving the premise that by going into the swamp, Braun has now developed the same abilities as the Fiend. So from the Mystic Plane standpoint, the field is now even. But I still think ultimately Alexa is going to be the linchpin that's going to decide how this match is going to go. And at this point, she's in her feelings right now, because she feels like someone who she really cared about and she thought cared about him has flat out declared, nah. Now get away from me.
I want the Fiend. I don't want to talk to you. Get out of my ring. I was just in my feelings on that one. How could you be so close to someone and then just on the drop of a hat just flip it up and just go cold on that person? If I was Alexa, I want answers too.
Well, also we made mention ourselves, that people revert back to the way they were. Well, Braun has now been into contact with the Fiend, and his most successful win was not when he was high-fiving and being best friends with Alexa and being with everyone else. It's when he was the monster, the guy who came in, didn't work by the hour, and just ran folks over, and he knows that's what it is. And he also has made mention before, he feels like he's the only one that can stop the Fiend, and if the Fiend becomes champion again, he doesn't think anyone will stop him again. So either way, we'll see how it plays out, but SmackDown definitely doing a great job of, getting the storylines right this week, minus the Women's Battle Royal. Hey, they got a week to convince me. Let's see what happens. You can hear our smallest fan, the 24/7 champ, is tired of us talking. So let's go ahead and get to the wrap up here. First of all, a couple of happy birthdays. We were trying to do some mentions on our Instagram earlier,
and they're still going to happen. I hadn't forgotten.
But we'll go ahead and say him on the show. We talked about him earlier. Happy birthday, Johnny Gargano.
Happy birthday, Kofi.
Absolutely, Kofi Kingston, the former WWE champ, and also Simone Johnson, Rock's daughter. Now an NXT superstar. Paving her own path into her own wrestling career. It's her birthday today too. So happy birthday to the three of you.
Yeah, happy birthday. Enjoy your day. Don't do nothing I wouldn't do.
So that does it for On the Ring Apron this week. We, of course, enter into our very special double pay-per-view setup for next week. So with that being stated, that does mean we will go ahead and note there will be no On the Ring Apron this next Friday, because either on Thursday or Friday we will be doing instead our NXT Takeover Top Rope spoilers. Of course, the SummerSlam one will come on Saturday. And, of course, as you would expect, there will be a questions with the Queen at some point during the week. We're going to see if we can try to do, we've had a lot of people who want us to do that live feed of our reactions to SummerSlam. We're going to see if we can put the pieces together and try to make that happen. And then, of course, the expectation, in fact, I'll just go ahead and call it, there will be a plate exchange immediately following our reaction to SummerSlam. As of the moment, I've got 2, assuming the titles stay with their current holders. We have at least 2 we're going to do, and obviously the possibility of a number more. These cards are stacked for these pay-per-views, and also the announcement of Payback the following week. We have our first match. The women's tag titles will be on the line for that. So, a lot to look forward to over these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And I look forward to them. So, yeah, let's go for it.
I mean, hey, it's an exciting time. WWE getting ready to move back into large arenas again. Granted, it's only one for the moment, but, we're starting to move back towards what we used to know as normalcy. But hey, that doesn't mean everything's done. The masks still need to be worn. The hands still need to be washed. But hey, that's on the Ring Apron. We're looking forward to next week. A lot of material and a lot of fun coming your way for TakeOver and SummerSlam weekend. So you guys have yourself a good night. Kia, take us home. See you later on.
All right, with that being said, I'm out. Again, social distance, do what you have to do. Just stop being foolish. Let's get back into the arenas, people. Love you, good night.